Hi, my name is Bree Gray, and I'm the Director of Communications and Press for the Allegheny College Student Government. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Aaliyah Coleman. I'm a senior on campus. I'll be graduating in May. My plans after school are to get into, well, I will be getting into a master's program, master's of physiology, and then apply for medical school. On campus, I do a plethora of things. I'm involved in two clubs, A Ladies' Place, which is a club that is geared towards women in order to help them with just the struggles of life, the ups and downs of life. So we kind of try to connect with them and just talk about coping mechanisms. Sometimes you just need to complain. So, just come and complain, talk about some things, get a few things off your chest, and just learn from one another. The other organization I'm a part of is MAPS. So I'm the co-president of MAPS, which stands for the Minority Association of Pre-Health Students. Within that club, we try to, our goal is to build a pipeline from even high school to college, and from college to any type of, like if you're going to dental school, I'm trying to think, PT school, med school, just any type of pre-health goal in mind. We try to just connect you with people that may help you get to that goal a bit easier, get you to learn a few things. We try to supply tools for like the MCAT, so we try to get some MCAT prep books. But we also have a great connection with the SNMA, which is the Student National Medical Association. So they host a lot of great events, medical conferences that we just had not too long ago. Yeah, so they have like great opportunities where you can meet with deans of schools, deans of medical schools, other orthopedic surgeons, or just surgeons, not just orthopedic surgeons, but other doctors, surgeons who are in the medical field. So you get the opportunities to connect with them as well. I am also a member of the Pi Phi Chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Soroity Incorporated. Something else that I participate on campus is in the Idea Center. I'm the Senior Intern. So a lot of times I'm working with our silk organizations on campus. Those are organizations that highlight different identities on campus and give them a place to give people a place to come and to relax and let their hair down. And then also other people, come learn about a different culture and things of that nature. I'm also the Intercultural Advocate at the Idea Center, that we work to kind of bridge a gap between I always been it this way, but the white students on campus and our students of color, just to see if we can gain a better understanding within one another. We see that there could be some issues that arise on campus. And so we try to just talk about them and talk through them, and to help people gain a different perspective on campus of the people that they're with. So there's many different cultures whenever you come to college. So we try to just get other people to understand each other a bit more and try to lessen the discrimination or any type of hate that may be going on campus.
And can you talk a little bit about, kind of the philanthropy behind Zeta? We mentioned it a little bit when we talked about it earlier, but just kind of go in it again.
Yeah, for sure. So Zeta has a lot of things going on. So essentially the first one, there's Z-Hope. That's Zeta's helping other people excel. So we work just to help people become better people, become the best version of themselves. There's Challengers Kids. The Challenger Kids program is a program that is mostly students who are involved in STEM. So they have the opportunity to actually go to a space camp and learn more about that. What else could I talk about? Stork's Nest. Stork's Nest is a program that focuses on prenatal health for women who are, of course, expecting to be pregnant or pregnant, and they're going through just different things. Your body goes through a lot of different stuff. So we try to give a lot of information out about that as well. I'm trying to think what else. They're usually all on the tip of my tongue, but they're like starting to escape me. What's another one? Oh, the Human Genome Project. That's probably my personal favorite, even though it just skips my head. But the Human Genome Project, they're working to discover more about the human genome. So they're trying to cover, I believe there's 30 million or 60 million, don't quote me, but genes within the body. And Zeta is goal is to learn about as much of the genome as possible in order to stop not stop, but prevent or help cure a lot of the diseases that are affecting people. So that's something that I'm definitely really interested in looking into, just because me myself, I'm very into genes and genetics. So that I'm really interested in that. I think there's several. There's a bunch, but those are probably definitely like my top three, because I'm a science person. I'm a little geek, and I like taking care of people. So those are definitely some of my top programs within Zeta.
And I'm gonna piggyback off what you said when you were referring to like how you're big into like STEM and then the sciences. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the things that you're passionate about, whether it be like within science or even outside of science?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to science, I'm definitely into the anatomy of the body. That's like my end goal is to become an orthopedic surgeon. That's probably why I came out first whenever I was talking about the medical conferences. But I genuinely enjoy how the body works together in order to live. You know, how your brain sends messages down to your body in order to do certain things, talk, breathe. You know, I find that extremely fascinating. Genes and genetics, that I probably would say that that's the one that, you know, kind of stills my heart, just because I find it honestly amazing that our body is able to code these different things and come up with these, you know, amino acids in order to exist. You know, it's like I was reading something the other day that talks about, like, you know, the difference between somebody having freckles or not is whether they have an A or a C in a particular area in their genome. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I just want to keep learning more and keep exploring as much as I can when it comes to that. So I definitely, like, my passion would be, or is, the body and how it works, and also outside of the body, just how we interact with each other. I love talking to people. I love meeting new people. I love seeing their perspective. I love learning. I try not to keep my bubble so small. And when I say my bubble, I mean like my group of friends and my perspective. I try to learn as much as I can from as many people as possible, because I feel like it's important to recognize other people, you know, that you're surrounded yourself with.
And sorry, that TV's a little bit loud. It's starting to get like louder as we're sitting here. Um, I want to ask you a little bit about your philosophy in life. And you mentioned a lot of it with keeping an open mind or having an open friend group and being willing to communicate with other individuals. Like, what has been your motto in life that's kind of guided you from, you refer to like your first year all the way to your senior year? You know, what's kind of been that guiding principle for you?
I would say put myself out there. I kind of just would take the leap of faith to learn, to understand, and to grow. I would say that's definitely something that I've been living by, is just, you know, put yourself out there, take the chance to learn something different, be around something different, absorb something different, learn it, understand it, and then grow. Because that's just the biggest thing in life. You know, for me, it's like self-mastery. I want to know myself the best way possible. And I personally feel as though I can't know myself if I only put myself in one place my entire life, and one place that I'm familiar with. So placing myself in different areas of life, I think, is important, because it allows me to learn a different perspective and learn other people's perspective. Like, I talk to people a lot. They may think that, you know, I'm annoying, or like I just pry a bit too much. And I try to be conscious of that, because I don't want to just like be in people's business. But I enjoy learning different people and learning, you know, I mean, I don't know many languages, but just listening to them, sometimes I'm just fascinated by it, because I'm like, wow, you can just speak like a totally different language and you also know English. Like, I'm like, you're awesome. Like, that's amazing. But yeah, I just definitely just put yourself out there and take the chance, take the risk. You know, what's the worst that could happen? A lot of the times I tell myself, like, you're already at no. So if you ask, you'll either get yes or you'll be still stuck at no.
I like what you just said, that you're always at no until you ask. I think that's a really interesting perspective to have, because a lot of times we talk ourselves out of opportunities. So we're like, nah, maybe, you know, it's going to be no. It's just going to always be no. But I like that you said that. You just take the chance. You might get yes. I like that.
It might happen. You never know.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to spin a question off of that. I'm going to ask you about that. So for a lot of our students, especially our first year students who are dealing with like COVID-19 and like trying to network, you know, they're going to go into their sophomore year after this and they'll never have the traditional first year Allegheny experience. Sorry if you can hear that. But for them, when they're like looking to do opportunities outside of, you know, what they've grown comfortable with COVID-19. Sorry, it's getting really loud. After this way, this question's getting really hard to answer. Okay, so for students who maybe are nervous to take those opportunities, to take those chances, especially after COVID-19 and they've been isolated and they've kind of like stuck to themselves and that's the new norm, what advice would you offer them with regards to how to navigate college, how to, maybe how you did it and just kind of growing out of that shell?
When it comes to growing out of your shell, you kind of have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. You can't keep yourself in the same predicament because there's not much growth there. You kind of have to put yourself out there. That's just like the best advice I think I could give, is that to tell them like to just go for it and to just jump. I call it, you know, staying in double dutch mode. You know, you're out, the rope's going and you're just standing there and you're like, you know, you can either stay in double dutch mode or you can decide to jump in and enjoy it. And whether you mess up. Nobody's perfect. You learn the most whenever you mess up, honestly. So make the mistake, be vulnerable. It's uncomfortable, it is. And sometimes it sucks, but it's worth it in the end, because you may come out on the other end of whatever opportunity, whether it's a meeting, an event, you know, somebody wants to record something for you, like whatever it is, you know, you may feel uncomfortable. Sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith and be like, I'm okay. I can do it. Even if you don't believe it yet, you kind of just got to say it. I always say, I don't like to go with this philosophy, but it's kind of like fake it till you make it. But if you kind of just be like, I'm gonna be okay. I can get through this. If I do this and I try this, one, I'm proud of myself because I tried it. And two, I'm going to learn something from it. And that's the greatest part about it. And you may even meet some really awesome people on that ride, on that journey. So I'd say just go for it. You know, don't hold yourself back. You know, you're limiting yourself at that point. Don't limit yourself. You know, grow to the best person that you can be with any opportunity that you may get.
And I just remembered in our call that you mentioned something a little bit earlier about being on a personal development journey or the self-growth journey. And I'm going to tie it to the answer that you just gave, and the importance of constantly putting yourself out there and constantly trying to do the best that you can. And then along the way, no matter, you know, whether it's like yes or no, you're going to find your place somewhere and you're going to find a purpose somewhere. Can you tell me a little bit about, you know, your self journey, the way that you've come, even base it from, it doesn't even have to be just within Allegheny, but, you know, just kind of how you got to where you are today?
Well, therapy was definitely helpful. But I will say that I made the decision to grow. And I know that sounds like kind of like, ooh, but it's genuinely me taking the time to go, hey, do I want to stay in this place that I'm in, or do I want to evolve? And I wanted to evolve. So I took the chances and I took the jumps and I took the leaps. And there's sometimes I jumped and fell, and there's sometimes I jumped and soared. But it's important to pay attention to both times, but don't harp on the times that you fell. Just to stay within the analogy, I guess. There's times where I tell myself, if there's something that I'm harping on because I didn't do it right or I did it wrong or just whatever, I tell myself I did the best that I could with the information that I had at that time. I forgive myself and I love myself. You know, that's genuinely what I say to myself, because it's important to be kind to yourself. And it can be hard to do that. But you have that part, but then you also have to pay attention to the times where you did good. You did great. Like you had a great time. You grew and it was amazing. You think about those times, you focus on that. You know, the only time you should go back is to learn. If you want to go back and harp on something, learn from it, let it go, move forward and grow. But definitely pay attention to the victories and the small wins, even if that's just, I went to bed on time and woke up and ate breakfast. Like, that's good. You took care of yourself. Like, that's a good thing. Even if you went to office hours, you weren't confused on a topic, but you still decided to go to office hours just to get a little bit more clarification on something. That's a small victory. And you got to pay attention to those. Even if you don't do that, end up not doing that well on the test. Like, it happens. But you still pay attention to the fact, like, okay, assess the situation. Why didn't I do well? Is there something that I could have done differently? Should I went to office hours more? Should I have paid attention more in class? Should I change the way I'm taking notes? Like, that's how you should pay attention. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm dumb because I failed this and like, that's not gonna get you anywhere. That's gonna keep you exactly where you're at, if not even push you backwards. And there's no benefit from that. So assess the situation, see what you could have done better, could have done differently, apologize to yourself. That's how I kind of have to get over things. I'd be like, I'm sorry, Aaliyah. Like, maybe we shouldn't have went out that night. Maybe we should have stayed in and did what was necessary. But it's like, sometimes you take those moments and sometimes you need that release. Sometimes you need that break, but you do have to pay attention to what that consequence is if you do decide to take that action.
And I know that you don't like ranking things, so I'm not going to ask you to like rank things. For this question, when you look back at the times where you had both your highs and your lows, what is something that you recall that kind of was a period for you to grow as an individual, where you were like, yeah, this is one of the things that kind of propagated me to be a better person?
I felt like it was the times to where I was achieving. Like, I was just doing, I seen my potential. I'll put it that way. I would actually take the time, like, I could just compare it to school because that's just easiest for me to do. But, I took the time, I paid attention in class, I took good notes, I came back home, I reviewed those notes, did the same thing all the way up to the exam, went to see the professor or anything I was confused, asked questions in class, took the exam, felt comfortable and confident taking that exam because I told myself that I should feel comfortable and confident taking this exam because I did the work in order to be successful. And I get that grade back and that thing has an A on it, and it's like that for me is like, I'm capable, I can do it. Like, and that is what pushes me. That's what keeps me going, even if the next couple of exams don't turn out that way, I'm still just like, I'm sorry if that made a noise, but I'm still just like, all right, back to the drawing board, and I take those moments and I actually live in them. I don't allow myself to escape from those moments to where I'm not so proud of myself, because I feel like it's important to really accept what comes with it. And I try not to beat myself up about it because, again, that doesn't do much about it, but to genuinely be like, dang, okay, I didn't do that good on that one. What can I do now? I say it's a combination of both of those moments, to where it's like, I know what my potential is and I know what I can do. And then there's those times where I don't do that great. And I'm like, all right, like I said, back to the drawing board. But I would say it's definitely a combination of both of those. I hope that answers the question, but.
And you mentioned, or you actually said, that you live in that moment. And I think we see a lot of times people are very passive, and whatever happens to them, and they allow that. And that's, that's their decision, and that's fine. But, from your experience of actually living in the moment and constantly asking yourself, what can I do better? Or, what did I do that led me to this? And I noticed you asked that question a lot when you were talking about, well, I didn't do well on this, back to the drawing board, what can I do? And having that mentality, why it's so important to kind of, help you get to where you want to go, but also to make sure that you're checking in on yourself, most importantly.
Yeah, I think it's very important to be in tune with yourself. I didn't get to this point though until like my junior year, and then COVID hit. So I was like, oh great, yeah, this is fine. But I think it's important to be in touch with yourself, so then you're able to help yourself. For me, a lot of times, I'm sorry, my family's talking a lot. Just give me one second. I don't know what, out of nowhere, everyone in my family started talking exponentially loud. And I just was like, I cannot concentrate. But so just so I make sure I have the question right. So you're basically asking me, like, why is it important that I kind of why it's important to kind of stay in the moment during these times? Okay, yeah. I think it's super important because I guess the best way I can explain myself now is whenever it comes to relationships, try to be your own best partner. I think a lot of times we look for other people to try to fulfill us in certain moments. And if you don't know what you need in a particular moment, nobody else will. So in order to be your own best partner, you have to learn yourself. You have to see, like, okay, if I wake up one day and I'm not feeling the greatest, what's something that I can do that will make me feel better? For me, that's doing some yoga, drinking a whole bottle of water, and sitting in complete silence. That's my own refresh, my own restart. If I'm angry or I'm upset, there's something else that I do that helps me come back to center. So it's important to have that, because there's going to be times where you wake up and you don't want to go to class. That's happened to me many times. Like, I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I'd rather just lay in this bed all day in complete darkness and not be bothered. But you're a student. You're on campus for a reason. And if you are struggling with something, or you're struggling with your mental health, go use your resources. The school has the counseling center. Your friends are also a great option. But it comes to understanding what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, and then knowing what you need in order to kind of get yourself back up to who you are, like in the sense of, like, your happy self, your self-centered. Like, I call it coming back to center, because, like I said, there's times I wake up and I'd be like, I feel like my head is not on my shoulders. Like, I'd be like, I feel like I'm sitting a little to the left today. Like, I could just feel it. I feel off, but I take the time to register that, understand it, see if there's something that's actually bothering me, if I need to talk about it, if I need to address somebody or something. And then I just keep moving forward. And I'm sorry. but yeah, I try to just assess the situation. I say that a lot. I essentially treat myself as if I'm my own ecosystem. I look, I was like, okay, did I drink enough water last night? Did I have enough water today? Is there a reason why I have a throbbing headache? Have I ate? And that's why I say, like, be your own best partner, because a lot of times I feel like people may look to somebody else to kind of do this thing for them. And it just doesn't work like that. So yeah, you got to be your own best partner and see exactly what you need, and why you need it, kind of, too, at the same time.
And you mentioned during your junior year was the time where you really kind of hit that point where you were like, I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on my self-development. Was there a turning point that led to that? Was it just a realization that you had?
Okay, so what happened for me is that sophomore year, I had just gotten out of a relationship. And that spring semester, I indulged a bit too much into my social life, and to the point where I was neglecting my studies, and my grades showed that. And I knew that I was on the goal of becoming a surgeon. And there's certain things that you can sacrifice, but it shouldn't be to the point to where you're sacrificing your grades and your class. And, I'm showing up 30 minutes late for a 50-minute class. It's like, okay, what's the point of going? Like, and then so there was a lot of that going on. And I knew that I wanted to become a surgeon, and that is the goal and that is the plan. So I knew my junior year, I wanted to turn that around. So I knew I had to, over the summer, I started to learn myself a bit more. I took some summer classes to catch up a bit, or technically actually get ahead. But I took some classes, and I just made myself more disciplined, because I said, you can enjoy yourself, but it's to an extent. And whenever I realized that I was starting to sacrifice my studies a bit too much, because I am on campus to be a student, I knew that it was time to turn some things around. And so whenever my junior year came, that's whenever I became the student that I knew I always had the capability of being.
And this question might be a little bit weird because I know it depends on the individual and their individual preferences. But actually, I'll ask it towards you. Like, how did you find what worked well for you, a nice balance between social life and academics, so that way you still had some sense of community, but also you were on campus to be a student?
Yeah. So essentially, I found out the type of student I was. And I'm the type of student to where I need a few examples in order to understand something. And I didn't always get that through lecture. So I would have to go to office hours. And I would also communicate with my professor, like, hey, it takes me a second to really understand and absorb things. So with my professor knowing that it took me a little longer to understand a few topics, it helped them help me. So there are times they'd be explaining something, and I have one professor, Dr. Hirsch, like, it's my favorite professor at Gator. I definitely can say that. He would look at my face, and he could tell, like, Aaliyah is still lost. And I'm like, I'm almost there, but I have no idea what you're talking about at the same time. So getting a relationship with your professors is definitely helpful. But then once you learn the type of student you are, you know how many hours you need to dedicate to certain classes in order to be successful. There are some classes I can spend an hour outside of the class and I'd be good. There's other classes I had to spend 6 or 8 hours on the material after class. Chemistry was a doozy. But once you learn that, then you can kind of start to see the extra time that you can spend during your social life. That's essentially it. Like, once you learn the type of student you are, you learn what you need to do, you learn your schedule, pay attention to your schedule. I like to see things 2 weeks out, so I know exactly what's going on for this week and next week. So then you can kind of start to put your little social life in, and maybe, whenever, I guess when Brooks was open, go in there for lunch. Maybe you only need to spend 15 minutes and then get out of there. Sophomore year, I was in there for about 1 hour and 15 minutes every day, just talking, knowing that I probably could have gotten an assignment done at that time, so it comes down to time management as well. You just gotta, like I said, assess the situation, and see what works best for you. So you gotta see, okay, maybe I can spend 4 hours after my classes are done and maybe get all of my schoolwork done for the next 2 days. So then maybe I can chill and hang out with my friends, later on in the week and throughout the rest of the week.
And I miss Brooks, by the way. I also was the same way, sat there for like 1 hour, 15, hour, 20 minutes. Didn't need to. We're reading the atmosphere. But from your first year on campus to are you a first semester senior or a second?
No, that is my last semester, so second semester.
And reflecting back on everything that you've done, everything that you've learned at your time at Allegheny, both in the classroom and out of the classroom, what is something that really stuck with you that you're going to take with you out of this institution?
Be different. I think a lot of times I was worried about fitting in and being accepted, and I realized that that's really not that important whenever it comes down to it. It's actually more important to be different, and to state how you feel. Be wrong. I think it's just, there's a lot that you can learn whenever you decide to put yourself out there, whether you're right or wrong, or even if it's not a right or wrong situation, or you just want to kind of get your point out, get your opinion out there. That's definitely what Allegheny has taught me, is that to put myself out there, take the risk, be different, be heard. Because like I said, my freshman year, I didn't talk in my classes. I was the quiet person that would probably sit in the front of the class. I'm still in the front and center. My mom would call it the learning tea. and that was my options of where I could sit. Like that's always been, you know, my thing. So I definitely either be in the front, down the middle. And like I said, I was very quiet, didn't talk much. Sophomore year, kind of the same thing. But towards the end of my sophomore year, as my social life started to kind of grow, I also started to grow in the classroom a bit more as well. I would talk, I would say how I feel. It wouldn't be much, but it was just a little something to get some participation points for the class. But definitely as, you know, junior year goes on, that's whenever I got really, really involved in Silk and being on campus, going to meetings, talking in meetings. Definitely, I just see the change. And like now being a senior, like being asked to get an interview, if you'd asked me my freshman year, I probably would have been like, can I just type you something? Like, can I just write something for you? Like, I wouldn't want to say much, or I might even decline it all. Like, I'd just be like, no, that's okay. They can ask somebody else. But it was ultimately, I think, because I also believe that I didn't have much of a voice that deserved to be heard. I guess I was kind of used to living in the shadows per se. But over time being at Allegheny, I've seen my voice become bigger and more confident, because I'm not really concerned with being right anymore, but more so just explaining how I feel and learning whatever I can from the situation.
And there's things that I know about you. So for everybody who's watching this, I'm sorry, but I know you outside of this. So some of that, the little pieces are going to be missing for people watching this. But can you talk a little bit about why you felt as though your voice wasn't important? What led to that, or the need to constantly feel as though you're in the shadow?
Yeah, definitely. So I attended a high school that was predominantly white. I was the only Black woman that graduated in my class. There were other Black women at the school. However, just in my graduating senior class, I was the only Black woman there. And I think there was 2 other Black kids. There was a graduating class of like 92, I think. So I kind of put myself in a situation where I just was like, I don't want to talk too much. I don't know why. That's just kind of maybe how I was set up, I guess. But I felt like they didn't really care what I had to say, ultimately. So there was no reason for me to really speak up. And so I kind of just started to settle in that. However, I still would be who I am. I was still myself. I wouldn't hide who I was. I wouldn't dim my light. However, I wouldn't talk much on social issues. It was just more so what was going on at the school. I played basketball, so I talk about basketball or just cool stuff like that. But I didn't really talk much about social justice as I do now on Allegheny's campus. So coming from a background like that, it was Catholic. I'm not sure if I articulated it was a Catholic high school, but it was, and that was very different for me because I went to a public school prior to, and I didn't want to offend anyone with my views. Not that I have any like bad views, but again, I don't want to offend anybody, so I just wouldn't say much when it came to it. So I kind of taught myself how to be quiet with certain things, and so I came to Allegheny with that same mindset because I was like, I'm at a PWI, so I mean it's probably the exact same thing, but it was different because it was a liberal arts school, so there was some different views all and throughout. But I did kind of just teach myself not to say much because I felt as though the things that I did have to say either didn't matter because I was Black, and that's just kind of how I felt. There's actually a situation that happened in high school when I went to go talk to this other guy. I forget what I was. It was probably about like some homecoming dance or something. I don't even know, but I went to go talk to him. And he ignored everything that I said, looked me dead in my face and was like, "You're Black," and laughed and turned away from me. And that was the first time someone had ever done that to me. And I guess that would contribute to why I would feel like I didn't want to say much, didn't want to speak much, because I wasn't even talking about anything like crazy. I just was like, hey, so-and-so wants to go to the dance with you or da-da-da-da. And he looked at me and said that did to my face. And so I just was like, I really don't want to say much anymore. So that definitely contributed to it. And there's probably other scenarios that had occurred that I didn't realize it was that bad until I actually spoke it out loud. But kind of just built tougher skin and take it on the chin and just kind of let it go. I told one of my friends and he handled the situation, but it was just different because I also was prom queen at that school. So clearly I was recognized, clearly I was seen, which I definitely appreciated and was shocked. But I appreciated it. It was a roller coaster ride being at that high school because there was a lot of different things and a very big difference, especially coming there as a freshman after going to public school majority of my life. So I would say that contributed to it. But once I got to Allegheny, I realized that there wasn't that many people like that. And I was actually encouraged of my thoughts. And I think it was because as a freshman, I was taking a 400 level class, which is mostly juniors and seniors. And so they were saying exactly how they felt. And I just was like, oh my God, did they just say that in class? Like the professor right there? Like, it was just like a lot of like, whoa, like they're really saying these things. So being exposed to that, like my second semester, I was like, okay, all right, cool. But I felt like I still needed to gain some more knowledge and some more background on Black history, on Black people, because I wasn't taught that at any of the schools that I went to prior to. But once I started to learn more of my history, I felt more proud. You know, previous to Allegheny, all I learned about is that Black people were enslaved. So I kind of just kept that and kept quiet and just, you know, I was still who I was, but just, you know, got my way through. But once I got to Gator, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, I can really say how I feel about this stuff. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna get in trouble. Like, I'm not gonna get yelled at. I'm not gonna be sent out the classroom. Like, I was like, okay, this is college. Like, they're cussing in class. I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. Like, I was really fascinated with everything that was going on. So yeah, that definitely is the reason why I feel like my voice was a bit more silenced before I came to Allegheny.
And you talked a little bit about the atmosphere that, you know, the campus provides and the liberal arts type of mentality. And, you know, from your experience on this campus, and I would say from your first year to your senior year, talking a little bit about just kind of the way in which you navigated the classroom as it is a PWI. And we've talked about this privately, but did you notice anything different, or, you know, like, were you in spaces where you could be unapologetically you and bravely you?
Oh, definitely. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But yeah, definitely. I was always, no, I guess I could say that. I'm a Black Studies minor, so I kind of always was able to be in classrooms that wanted that. Like, it was like, this is your history, your perspective. Like, we want to hear more from you. So that was definitely given all the time. The only time I think that it wasn't, and not that it was purposely science, but I was in calculus class, so did not really much talk about social issues there. But outside of that, I feel like I was always offered the opportunity to kind of speak up and talk in all classes. I mean, there's sometimes where I would walk into my bio classes and professor may look at me or students may look at me like, you know, you're in the right space. And I'm like, is this animal phys? Because I think so. Like, you know, I'm here. You know, this is where I'm supposed to be. And even if I was the only Black person in the classroom, the only Black woman in the classroom, I'm still just like, all right, you know, only chocolate chip in the cookie. Like, it's all right. It's cool. You know, I'm kind of used to it, kind of sick of it, but used to it. But in certain spaces called for certain things. So in my science classes, there wasn't much talk about social issues because I'm probably learning about, you know, what's something, I don't know, the Krebs cycle. Like, I don't know, like, it was just focused on that. But in my Black Studies courses, and most definitely in Dr. Moore, Dr. Roberson, Professor Moore, her classroom was definitely probably one of the best classes I've taken at Allegheny when it came to, just because of the way in which she constructed the classroom in order for us to see different perspectives and not learning from just white authors, just white men or just Black men, whatever. Like, we learned from different perspectives, and I felt like it definitely enhanced me as a student because I learned from different perspectives, and that's probably like the most knowledge I've gained in a 100 level class. I was doing more work in that class than I was doing research for my comp. Like, I was like, no, I have to get this together. But it definitely was given the opportunity to kind of speak up and speak out about whatever I was feeling at that time.
And you talked a little bit in like a roundabout way about, kind of knowing history and making sure that you kind of had that to support you. And it helped you along the way to become more prideful in yourself and in your culture. Can you talk a little bit about why it's important for students, especially at a PWI, to have that experience with different cultures so that they can live and learn with individuals who are different than them and learn to respect and understand and appreciate different cultures?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it. Like, respect, understand, and appreciate different people and their background and where they come from. Like, just because that's not what you do doesn't mean you get to say like that's bad or you shouldn't do that. Like, what's the point? Like, I don't know. It's just, I clearly have a different perspective from most people, but I feel as though that's the most I can learn. That's more I can learn. That's a totally different person from a totally different place. Like, I have friends that are from DR, Dominican Republic. I have friends from Japan. Like, I'm like, I want to learn, how you guys can conduct yourselves. Because I've never left the United States. I've only been to a few different states, down the East Coast. So to have the ability to, not necessarily the ability, but the opportunity to learn from different people from different spaces, I think is just really, really cool. Like, and it's important because then it helps you grow as a person, because then whenever you go out into society and you run into another person that may be from that particular area, you may be able to adapt with them and grow a connection with them. And for all you know, that may help you get through something. It's just giving yourself the chance to learn something else about someone else in order to just conduct yourself better in society. Like, I feel like, this world, we work together. You have to work hard on your own to get to wherever you need to, but ultimately we work together as people. And if you keep yourself in this secluded mindset of only what you understand about yourself, you're doing yourself and others a disservice, because you're just not allowing yourself to grow mentally. It's not giving you the opportunity to grow. And I feel like it's important. You learn about different people and you grow.
And I know, and I'm going to refer back to some of the events that we had. So I was remote last semester, but I know you were on campus. And a lot of the SOAP organizations, especially during like Hispanic Heritage Month, they hosted these events that kind of like, this is what's important to me and let me tell you why. And, it's a little bit different this year because it was pack and go and physically distant, excuse me. So in those types of ways, it was different. But reflecting back on times where we could have multicultural field day, we could have all those events, we could have the Lunar New Year and like in the CC, and just kind of getting to experience firsthand different individuals' cultures and just kind of learning why it's important to them and what it means. Can you talk about why it's important to be beyond just I'm present and that more performative action where I'm just going to show up versus I'm here because I want to understand why this is important to you. What does this mean for your culture so that I can take a piece of that and learn to grow and appreciate it more?
I think we're stuck. You mentioned multicultural field day, and immediately took me back to when ABC had like this huge blow up. What do you call it? I don't even know what you call it, but it's like this. It was like a maze kind of thing, like a blow up maze. And you had like run through and you would race other people. I remember LR had like a bull riding. Like it was just awesome. Like they're just bringing their culture in and we're just talking, but and ultimately it's just really cool and amazing to be able to see other people's culture and see how much they love it, see how it excites them. Like you can see whenever people are talking how much it means to them because they're literally lighting up right in front of you. And I feel like that's that's the best part of it all, is like to see how passionate they are about where they come from and how passionate they are and willing to share it with you, even though you're not a part of it. Like, they're not even trying to exclude you because you're not where they're from. They want to talk about it. They want to share it. And I think it's just really cool. You know, it gives you the opportunity to honestly be in a different world in the middle of Meadville. You know, because Meadville is what it is. So being able to, you know, walk into the CC and see it decorated for whatever culture that is being celebrated at that moment, it's just awesome. I remember there was a drag show one time. Like, I walked to the CC and I'm like, whoa, like, this is like, what's going on in here? You know, I sat down because I was like, I gotta see what's going on. But you know, it just gives you the opportunity. I think there was another time, it was a fashion show, and all the different cultures, all the different organizations were showing, you know, what they wear, you know, back home. And I just was like, these outfits are awesome. Like, it just gives you the opportunity to see something different. And it's just really cool. Like, that's honestly how I can sum it up. It's just awesome to be able to see people light up about their own culture and be so willing to share it with you and wanting and inviting you in to celebrate it with them.
I remember one time I went into the CC and we had the river dancers there, and
right.
dance with us, and I was like, what? You want me to get up there and dance with you?
Right. They're like, yeah, come on. And you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing. You'll figure it out. Come on. And it's just like, all right.
Stuff like that it's so invaluable, and it kind of sucks that our first years aren't going to get to experience that. First years, if you're watching this, it's better. Trust me, you're going to love it.
Yeah, gaming's pretty cool.
It can be, yes, definitely. I think, I don't know, I'm hoping COVID-19 ends soon enough that we can start having those events again. But I think it's interesting to see how, and I'm going to shout out to LR and Union Latinx for hosting their events, and they did it in a manner where it was like physically distant, but they still got that type of experience. And
I got my little thing, like my little pay. Like, I went home and made it, you know, like, it's just, it's awesome. Like you said, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just remembered, you know, one of their events.
Yeah, like the one that came to mind for me was, so they posted all the videos on the Instagram as well. So it was like, on that, it was like, no, it means more than you just showing up. It means more, like, here's a video of how to do it, how to work on it. But I'm going to ask you about skills, because I know they also did like the bachata, and we've talked about it, and then what, you know, the different types of skills that you learn at events like this. So it goes beyond just learning about culture. You learn skills too. So in the time that you're going to spend by the same people doing the exact same thing, you could be learning about somebody else, somebody new that you're living and learning with for the next 4 years or 2 years, 3 years, wherever you are right now. But
yeah, whatever you have set up. Yeah. So I actually remember I was in the Idea Center, and LR does a lot on campus. But LR was, I think they were handing out self-care packages or something. And I was coming to the lockup at the Idea Center or whatever, and I just seen them like practicing what dance that they were gonna show the next day. And I'm sitting there in the corner, like, you know, I'm trying to learn now, so I know what's going on tomorrow. Like, you know, and I think I ended up not even be able to make it to that event. But just to see them, like, you know, they made up a choreography to, like, in that moment, like, I watched them, like, it took like 15 minutes, and they came up with this dance, and they were like, yeah, this is what we're going to share tomorrow. And I was like, wow, for one, just like, cool. And then to know that, like, they're going to break it down step by step, like, they're going to make sure you got your hips swivel. Like, it's not just like, oh, just come watch us. Like, no, we're going to make sure that, like, you understand what you're doing. Because, like, you never know when that can come in handy. You may be out one day partying, I don't know, and a song comes on and you're with a bunch of people. Like, you may meet someone who is also at, you know, club, bar, whatever it may be, and you get to dance with that. I mean, hopefully, you know, after Rona. Don't do this during Rona. But you may have the opportunity to go and dance with somebody and just make a connection, you know, and just there's things like that for me make my day better, you know, that I was able to just share a moment with someone, you know, from something that I learned in college at an event. And I just think it's really cool.
And don't like ranking things. Okay, so I have to like word my questions, or it's not like which one was your favorite, but more so, thinking back on all the events that you've attended on campus and all the opportunities you've had to like grow as an individual and then appreciate another person's culture. What has been one that you can recall? I'm just gonna say most readily. So like the first one that comes to mind, or something of that nature that's kind of like left a lasting impact on you as an individual, and you're like, this is something I'm going to take away from this, and I'm going to grow, and I'm going to not like copy it, but then use that as inspiration to do better and to move forward.
The one thing that just keeps coming to mind is soul food dinner. Cooking at soul food dinner. I think we had talked about this before. But just seeing everyone just in the kitchen in Schultz, and it was just so much going on, like back and forth, people cleaning here, running here, doing this, doing that, and it's just like there's a lot going on right now. But that was probably just one of my favorites, just because the year previous I didn't cook. So I just seen the product of everything that happened. I just was so amazed. I'm like, y'all did all this? Like, this is like, thank you. This is awesome. But then next year deciding to cook, and all of my friends also cooking too, like being in the kitchen with them and, just sharing that experience. That's definitely one that I will never forget. Just being with all my friends and just making some food, to feed the campus. It was just really cool. People have their different music playing in the background. One minute you're hearing Spanish music, and then you're hearing the baby going on. It's just like, I just love seeing people be themselves and being their most authentic and true selves. And inside that kitchen, that's exactly what I saw.
That reminds me, and we did talk about this. So we swapped stories about what it was like cooking with everybody all together running around. Oh my god.
Yeah.
We're back to the International Bazaar. But it's like, I don't know, things like this are so invaluable, even if it's not something that you can directly relate to. Just being a part of something of that nature, does not only help you grow as like an individual, but it's like to be there, be present, and to actively be involved means so much more to the people that, you're helping and you're working with than it does just kind of show up at the very end and not really be engaged or, having that experience. So I don't know. I can't wait for it to come back. I'm a big fan, so like there's that.
Yeah.
There's something about really getting to try different foods that people have prepared and they cared enough about to want to share with you. And beyond that, that it's really touching, and it's also just kind of one of those things that you're never going to forget. Something I'm never going to forget. My sophomore year is coming, it's gone. I'm going to be a junior, and, I will have missed a lot of the things that I loved about Allegheny. But for anybody who's watching, if you've made it this far, congratulations. But
congratulations.
Like there's more to it. There's more to Allegheny than COVID-19. There's more to Allegheny than physical distancing. And I think, we talked about it a little bit, the different events, the ways that we've grown, the ways that you've grown as well. And just kind of knowing that whatever comes next, you have to take it on the chin and do so and constantly be promoting growth. And that's something you shared quite a bit, that whole looking back, and then also how you've grown, where you've come. And then we talked a little bit about your aspirations. This is a really long question, and I'm killing it. I'm sorry.
You're good.
But like, I don't want to say where do you see yourself going next, because I already know, like we've talked about it, but I mean more so, where do you want to be mentally when you leave Allegheny? What is something that you hope for yourself and you're manifesting for yourself?
I would definitely say confidence, just more confidence in myself as a person, more confidence in who I am as a student, as a leader. There's a lot of times to where I don't want to say that I don't believe in myself, but I think I forget who I am. And I allow those negative thoughts to creep in and start to get the best of me. But I would definitely say that my goal is to consistently believe in myself and know that, I'm making the right decisions and I'm taking the best strides that I can to be the best person that I can be. self-mastery is the goal.
I like that. I mean, we've talked about the whole self-mastery and what it meant to you, but actually I want to ask it because they don't know. So to you, thinking of when you're thinking about self-mastery, what to you would hit that mark where you're like, yeah, I've hit the point where I feel as though I'm the most comfortable I can be in my skin and I have reached this level of self-mastery?
You always have these great questions that genuinely make me look inward. But I would say being able to what just popped into my head is that life is 1% of, I'm not sure if I'm quoting it right, but it's just in there saying like life is about 1% about what happens to you and 99% of how you react to it. I think whenever you get to the point to where other people are trying to take you out of what's the word I'm looking for? Take you out of center, take you out of self. Whenever they're trying to knock you off kilter, essentially, but you're able to see that and not allow it to occur. You're still able to stay within yourself, to know yourself, to understand like, all right, this person's, trying to poke the bear a bit. But understanding yourself in the sense of, I can see what they're doing and I'm not allowing it to happen. But then also if it's more within yourself, you see that you're starting to slack off on whatever it may be. You see that your diet is starting to change into a manner that may not be best for you and what you have planned for yourself. You see that you're not drinking as much water. Certain things like that. Whenever you're able to pick up on that before it becomes detrimental to your health, that's a part of self-mastery. I feel like that's the best way I can explain it, because I'm trying to think about it, myself, what I see myself like when I'm stressing out. Because, you start to stress, you start to forget about certain things that, I think I seen on Twitter the other day, like sleep isn't a reward, it's a necessity. You don't get to a point to where it's like, no, I'm going to finish all these assignments, I'm going to and then I'll go to sleep, and then I eat. There's times where I'd be like, no, I'm just going to finish this reading and then I'll go to the bathroom. I'm like, girl, you need to release, like, go to the bathroom. So I think it's just along the lines of that, just listening to your body, understanding your body, and doing what's best for you in that situation, and not necessarily trying to learn when to say no. Now I feel like I'm just rambling. But it just, for me, because I'm a people pleaser and I want to make sure everybody is fine, everybody's good, and if I can do it, then I'll do it. But it just comes to a point to understanding what you need to do for yourself in order to be your best self. And once you understand that, and once you continue to learn, because I don't think that process really ever stops, because you're going to be in different situations your entire life. So I think it's just important to continue to assess yourself, assess the situation, see what you need to do, drink your water, sleep, take care of yourself, do what's important for you in order to be your best self at all times.
I love talking to you. You always have insightful answers where it's like, here's things that you could do. I don't know. I love it. It's like those TED Talks that you get to have and you're like,
oh my goodness, am I good enough for a TED Talk? Don't say that. I think, honestly, I talk too much sometimes. Like, sometimes I'm talking and I'll be in my mind like, you should probably shut up. But then there's like that negative talk. Like, I do it. It probably happened about 3 or 4 times during this interview. And I'm just like, you should probably shut up now. And I'm like, no, Aaliyah, calm down. Like, you can talk. It's all right. So I'm still battling it myself, but I'm glad that I'm still able, and that's honestly my point of talking so much, because I want to be able to have other people, while they're listening to me, to have that moment of self-reflection, like, could I take care of myself better? You only get one body. You gotta take care of it. You have to.
My mom's the same way. Like, she's like, when you think about it, there are going to be so many things that happen to you in your life, and the way in which you react to it is going to say more about your character than any words that you could use to describe yourself, or any words that any type of individual could use to describe you, because the way in which you're perceived is going to be 100 times different between the next person. and really just understanding that if you look within yourself and you're able to reflect and you're able to say like, no, this is who I am, this is what matters to me in life, and you're able to do that, that's her definition of self-mastery too. She calls it something different. I don't really know what it's called. Something has to do with like the Maslow hierarchy thing, and she's
Okay. Okay.
like top point. I don't remember.
You're up here. Individual. Top self.
I don't know. I think we're at a really good place, and I know you have the Zeta thing very soon. I'm like, oh my god, I want to take your time.
Yeah, I do. I was wondering why like, my phone kept going off, and I'm like, I'm coming.
All right, I hate to end a good conversation, but you do have the Zeta thing, so.
I mean, we can honestly always talk again. Like, I really don't care. Module 1 is done, so I'm like.
I'm definitely in the same boat. When I finished like, oh gosh, I'm gonna call it J term officially, module 1.
Right, gotta call it the right thing.
I was relieved. It was a breath of fresh air.
Ooh, yeah, putting that final submit. The last time I was like, I never want to go through this again. I never want to go through that again. That was treacherous. Genuinely, I was treacherous.
Yeah, it was rough. I had macroeconomics, and I was like, it wasn't too bad, but it was like bad enough where it was like too much information for 3 weeks. But
that's exactly how I felt. I took evolution, which is essentially like the backbone of biology. So that was interesting. I learned a lot, especially when it came to like sexual selection. Like Dr. Whiteneck just started going off on a lot of the different mating methods. I just was like, this is a lot for me to see. Like, I feel like I should not be watching this, but just animals, I guess.
All right, I'm gonna formally end this. Thank you so much for coming out. This is our second time, so thank you for coming out again.
Of course.
To do this with me. I enjoy it, obviously. This is something that, I take very personally, and I get to learn new things from different people, and I think there's something about that is really important. And I hope that if anybody finished watching this, which I hope you did, you took something too. And I think that, one of the greatest aspects of being able to communicate with individuals, especially since we're doing it remotely, is getting to learn more about you as a person, your experiences, and kind of developing that type of relationship where it's not just, let me ask you all these questions, and more so, let's have that like symbiotic relationship where we can talk to each other and feel comfortable doing so. So thank you.
Oh yeah, most certainly. Anytime.
Recording.